Hi everyone and welcome. My name is Missy Palese and I'm a staff developer with the Lincoln Intermediate Unit. Whether you're supporting an early elementary reading group, pushing into a middle school science block, or guiding high schoolers through complex algebra, vocabulary serves as the ultimate gatekeeper to student success. Today, we are bypassing the basic foundational information and are focusing on an evidence-based vocabulary method called the Frayer. Before we jump into our content, let's make this as inclusive as possible. Please engage with the recording in whatever way you feel most comfortable. If you'd like a refresh on the foundational information, feel free to click on the cheat sheet right here to access a one-pager from the beginner's presentation. Also, you'll find my email address over here if you have any questions or concerns. Please don't hesitate to reach out. We are going to kind of focus a little bit more on math vocabulary as we're going through and talking about the techniques. However, these techniques can be applied to any vocabulary. Let's test your baseline vocabulary knowledge to find the fib. On your screen are 4 statements regarding vocabulary instruction. Please pause this recording right now for about 2 minutes. Read through each of these 4 statements carefully. Select the one you believe is the absolute fib or false statement. Write down a brief bullet point explaining why it is false before hitting play. Welcome back. If you guessed that statement number 1 is the fib, you are entirely correct. Simply exposing students to new words and context is an excellent supplement, but it is not enough. Explicit, structured vocabulary instruction is required to close the achievement gap for high-risk learners. Statements 2, 3, and 4 are completely true, reinforcing that vocabulary deficits directly block high-level math and reading performance. Knowing that explicit instruction is our catalyst, let's look at a concrete objective we will use for this session. Our primary objective for today's advanced session is to master a highly versatile graphic tool. You will be able to construct a 4-quadrant Frayer model for a selected Tier 2 vocabulary word. Always remember to partner directly with your grade level content teachers to isolate the essential, high-leverage vocabulary words that align directly to the academic standards your students are working with. Our role is to reinforce the terms that unlock the general education curriculum. To select the right words, let's quickly review the 3-tier framework. Tier 1 consists of everyday words familiar to most students, primarily learned naturally through conversation, like add, subtract, or number. This requires 0 instructional time for most general education students. However, always look out for multiple meaning traps with English learners. A basic word like table means something completely different at lunchtime than what it does when we're looking at a statistical graph. Tier 2 cross-curricular words are your primary leverage zone because they appear across all subject areas and heavily drive reading comprehension. These terms are like compare, estimate, or solution. Finally, Tier 3 words consist of domain-specific academic vocabulary, like numerator, denominator, or isosceles. Your role as a para-educator isn't to reteach these massive math or science concepts from scratch, but rather to act as the intermediate linguistic bridge and prompt memory retrieval while students are working. Let's practice identifying one of those multi-meaning traps right now in real-world math scenario. Let's put your advanced knowledge to the test with a real classroom scenario. The situation. A student encounters the word volume in a math word problem. Find the volume of the prism. The student looks at you and says, "I know that word. It means how loud the TV is." Mathematically, we know that the word volume has shifted from an everyday conversational meaning. Pause this recording for 3 minutes. Write down which tier the word volume belongs to in this specific math context. Then draft a one-sentence, student-friendly explanation that clarifies the math-specific definition of volume while gently separating it from their everyday Tier 1 understanding. Pause now and resume when ready. Welcome back. In this specific math problem, volume functions as a Tier 3 domain-specific term because it's a precise geometric property, the total cubic space inside a three-dimensional object. A perfect sentence on the fly whisper definition would be, "You're right, volume can mean how loud a TV is, but in math class, volume means how much space or stuff fits inside a 3D shape, like filling up a box." This validates their background knowledge while instantly anchoring them to the math standard. So how do we systematically intervene inside and outside the classroom? Let's review our daily coaching protocols. Your incredible impact spans across the entire school day, well beyond basic worksheets. Inside the classroom, you can utilize the power of pre-cue strategy. 2 minutes before a whole group lesson starts, lean in and quietly whisper to a student to keep their ear out for a specific target word like modify. This primes their sensory memory and builds massive student confidence when the teacher uses the word moments later. Or you could try strategic scaffold removal. Always follow a student's specific SDI and 504 plans, but aim to promote cognitive autonomy by asking guided questions rather than just doing the physical pen and paper writing or typing for the student. Imagine a scenario where a student successfully writes out examples for the Tier 2 word predict, but gets completely stuck on the non-example quadrant. Instead of feeding them a word, implement a powerful coaching pivot. For an elementary student, you might prompt, "What are you doing if you already know it's 100% finished?" For a middle school student, you could ask, "What is the exact opposite of making an educated guess?" This forces the student to do the heavy cognitive lifting. Outside the classroom, use natural language expansion during transitions by replacing basic Tier 1 talk with upgraded vocabulary. Instead of saying, "Line up quietly," try saying, "Let's maintain an orderly line." When a student needs a deeply structured visual intervention to map out these words, we turn to the Frayer model. Let's look at how we build one on the fly. When a student hits a wall with an abstract Tier 2 or Tier 3 academic word, my absolute favorite evidence-based tool is the Frayer model. It forces the brain to build a robust schema or mental map from multiple cognitive angles simultaneously. Best of all, you don't need a printer or a pre-made worksheet to use this. You can take any piece of scrap paper and guide the student through a 30-second folding sequence. Once you've followed all 4 steps, how do you facilitate the tool without taking away from the student's cognitive autonomy? Let's look at the quadrant sequence. Let's imagine you are pushing into a 3rd grade math block and a student is struggling with the word fraction. Don't just tell them what it is. Instead, pull a dry erase template of a Frayer model and guide them through this sequence. We're going to want to draw immediate focus by writing the vocabulary word clearly in the center. Have the students say it out loud to build phonological awareness. Next, we're going to want to elicit student-friendly meaning, more of a coach definition. Don't let them copy out of a textbook. Ask them, in your own words, what is this? Example, for a fraction, a part of a whole thing. Next, we want them to identify key characteristics for a deeper analysis of the word fraction. What must it have? It has a top number and a bottom number and a line. The pieces must be equal size. We would write these characteristics here. Then we would generate some concrete examples, more of the application of the word and its characteristics. Have the students draw or write examples. For example, a slice of pizza, half-filled cup, or the numerical representation of 1/2. Finally, establish some non-examples. This is more of the boundary settings. It's a crucial step. Ask, what looks like it but isn't it? A whole pizza, pieces of cake chopped up into unequal sizes, or just the number 5. Sometimes when I'm working with students, I would maybe start with the word here and then develop the characteristics and the examples, then develop the student-friendly meaning definition, and then the non-examples. Sometimes non-examples can be confusing to at-risk students, so maybe we could use a different category in that bottom quadrant. Maybe it's using it in a sentence or writing out a problem with the word fraction in it. Let's review a completed mathematics example to see how this looks visually for an advanced fractional concept. Here's where the target word is located. This draws focus. The teacher definition, fractions that have the same value. Student definition, 2 fractions that are equal. They might say that, or they might say 2 fractions that show the same amount. And then you can see the drawing of an example where they are equivalent, where they're showing the same value. And then a non-example, you can see that these are not equivalent, where the 1/2 shows a greater value than the 1/3. We can easily modify the Frayer to meet various learning styles and physical needs using these 3 hands-on sorting tasks. First, the puzzle piece sort. Give the students a blank master grid template and separate scramble cards containing a pre-printed mix of correct definitions, related characteristics, valid examples, and distractor non-examples. The student would sort through the options and place the terms into the correct boxes. In this situation, there are 2 laminated templates. You could give them the words that they are going to target in the center, and then they have to fill out the outer quadrants, or you could even give them the outer quadrants and they would have to figure out what word that is. you could have, three, up to three, or maybe four Frayers laid out for the students, depending on their level and ability to distinguish between all of the sort cards. They would just be laminated, and then they could slide them onto the Frayer where they think they make the most sense. I love this interaction because it increases student engagement. It helps them discriminate between different concepts. And it also promotes metacognitive thinking because they have to explain why they're putting a card where they placed it. This could be done independent. This could be done with partners, small group, however you see fit based on the students that you're working with. A second option to consider is the four-corner room sort. Turn the classroom or small group space into a giant living Frayer. Hang 4 large pieces of chart paper in the 4 corners of the room. Hand a small team of students a stack of sticky notes with various phrases or images, and have them discuss as a team and run to the corner or walk to the corner to categorize their facts. Or third, the collaborative envelope sort. Perfect for small groups intervention. Place 4 small labeled envelopes inside a large main envelope. Empty the scrambled slips onto the table and have group members work together to read and sort them into the correct categories. Now that you've seen the framework, the folding, and the delivery, and sorting adaptations, it's time for your independent task. Let's put everything we discussed into active practice. On your screen, you will see a list of high leverage academic words common across K-12 math and science curriculums, such as value, chord, adjacent, independent, congruent, and average. Select one high leverage word from this list that aligns closest to the grade band you support. Use our paper folding techniques to design a physical template. Fill out the teacher definition, an authentic student-friendly definition, concrete examples, and powerful non-examples. On the back of your paper, write down one strategic coaching question you will use if a student gets stuck. Please pause this recording for the next 15 minutes to build your physical Frayer model tool. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to build that tool. Remember, when you use this resource in the classroom, you aren't just keeping students on task. You are actively closing vocabulary gaps for students to access the curriculum. To help you continue this work independently, let's take a quick look at our deep dive resource links. If you're interested in taking a deeper dive in some of the topics we discussed today, I included some links and videos for you to do that on your own. Thank you all so much for your incredible dedication, your unique expertise, and everything you do for your school community every single day. You are making a measurable difference in the classrooms. Have a fantastic school year. Enjoy putting the Frayer model into practice, and please reach out if you have any questions or need anything. I did include at the bottom of the slide an infographic that went with the advanced presentation from today. And if you do need to email out, my email is on the first slide. Thanks so much. Have a great school year.